welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and Dominaria United is here. We got spoilers already. We got to start talking about them. And of course, as usual, I like talking about the legendary creatures because that is what usually is going to be most impactful for the Commander format. And these are sort of combination spoiler videos, reaction videos, because I haven't really looked at these cards yet. So that you sort of get a combination here of my initial reaction of what these commanders are going to be like, build aroundable, and you know how they're going to impact the format. Also, I have obviously looked at them a little bit, and I really find it interesting that they did the whole they're revisiting old commander creatures, right? Commander creatures, particularly from the original Legend set, but moving all the way up. I mean, obviously from Dominaria. It's Dominaria United, right? So we're going to be seeing a lot of familiar names here. And we're going to start out with Zur, Eternal Schemer. White, blue, and a black. Human wizard 1/4 with flying. Enchantment creatures you control have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof. Wow. So obviously the first Zur is incredibly busted commander because it is a tutor, and having a tutor as a commander is incredibly good in the commander format. Obviously, without even looking at the other ability, which I can imagine I already know what it is, but enchantment creatures you control have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof is fantastic. There's a lot you can do there. Obviously, there's stuff that just makes enchantment creatures, which obviously is great. Turning your stuff into enchantments is going to be, I'm trying to think of a card, something that turns because turning your commander into an enchantment is going to be ideal, because then you, of course, your commander will have hexproof, which is what you want. So obviously there's a ton you can do there. Let's look at the second ability though. 1 and a white, target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and base toughness, each equal to its mana value. Okay, so now, as I suspected, we're going to be turning our enchantments into creatures, right? And there's a lot you can do there as well. Obviously, they're going to have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof, which is great. This is even just a great way to protect your enchantments. So if you have a Rhystic Study or a Smothering Tithe, and I really think that, you know, they did the Bant enchantment tribal thing in C18. Was it C18? Or C19, I can't remember, but I always thought Esper was even better at enchantment tribal than Bant. I don't know why. I guess Green has a little bit of the Enchantress stuff, but I think Esper has all the best enchantments. So you have like a Smothering Tithe or a Rhystic Study. Now you can pay 2 mana in response to a removal spell, turn it into an enchantment creature, and it will have hexproof, and that Nature's Claim or whatever will now fizzle. So just I can protect my enchantments by turning them into, by basically 2 mana. Basically what this is 2 mana, I give my enchantment hexproof. That's what this is, right? Obviously its base power and toughness is equal to its mana value, so you could do, you know, I put an Omniscience in play and then I turn it into a 10/10 creature, but I mean, you have an Omniscience, so why would you need to? That seems like a lot of, you know, if you're going to get a huge, expensive enchantment in play, it probably is already super busted. So turning it into a creature doesn't really seem like you'd want to do that. I think more so you want to be either putting like stuff that creates enchantment creature tokens in here would be good. But more so, I just want to protect my enchantments, I think, is that you just make a really great Esper enchantment tribal deck here. And someone wants to kill my Smothering Tithe, I give it hexproof essentially. And then I can also, as a win con, start turning all those enchantments into creatures and then attacking with them as well. So, I mean, just a ton you can do here. Obviously, it's going to be a really popular commander for sure. Next up, we got Sulkanar the Tainted, and of course, originally Sulkanar the Swamp King, which I did on my Underwhelming Commanders video. Same mana value, same power toughness. I believe he's a 5/5. So 2 blue, black, and a red. Elemental Demon, that's different. Very different. So he's turned into an elemental. I think before, was he a zombie demon? Anyway, at the beginning of your end step, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Okay, so that means already he keeps track of the abilities that have been chosen. It looks like he's got four, so that means when you play your commander, you have four options. And once those four options have all been chosen, that's it. Now, we might have something that resets it, just like with what's her face, the Henrika has a you choose and then you transform, right? So draw a card, which is always good. I like these end step triggers too, because then you play your commander and immediately on your end step you can draw a card. At least you get some value out of it before your commander gets killed by a board wipe or something. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Okay, these are all very minimal. Sulkanar the Tainted deals 3 damage to up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. Great. These are all nice little usable abilities. Definitely not overwhelming at all. Exile Sulkanar, then return to the battlefield under an opponent's control. I was not expecting that. I thought for sure that was just going to be exile Sulkanar and then to return it to play under your control so that you can reset it and use those abilities again. Return it to the battlefield under an... What the... Oh, wow. Why do you want to do that? Is this just a straight up politics or even hug commander? Like, if you give this to an opponent, they're going to get to draw a card. They're going to get to drain you. They're going to do 3 damage. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. There are reasons to donate things to your opponents, but usually you're donating bad stuff to your opponents. Right? There isn't. So I'm going to exile this. Is there a trick to this? Because otherwise this looks really, really bad. Because the giving it to your opponents is terrible. Obviously, I'm trying to think of what's a good reason to give it to your opponent. I guess you could just homeward path, or brand. Put that stuff in your deck just to give it back. I'm just trying to think. I want to give it to my opponent, but why do I want to give it to my opponent? There might be a few really fringe ways to take advantage of that, but for the most part, that's all bad. And this is like the upsides are just okay. They're just like draw a card, drain opponents for 2, lightning bolt the creature. Those are all just okay. They're not great. So having that big downside seems like a bit much. Yeah, I don't like it. It's like you're gonna play this and then immediately on your end step you can draw a card. Okay, for 5 mana, that's not great. And then you wait a whole nother turn, and on that end step you get to bolt a creature, and then you wait a whole nother turn, and you get to drain each opponent for 2 life, and you gain 2 life. All of that is just very minimal in a commander game. It's underwhelming. And then you have to blink your command. Now, of course, you can just blink your own commander, but now I have to put a whole bunch of stuff in my deck to work around the fact that I don't want to donate my creature to my opponent. So I can blink it myself. So I can just cast a blink spell, blink my Sulkanar, and then I reset it and I can start from scratch again. Or I can use a brand or homeward path or something like that just to get it back. Still though, it's very minimum what you're getting. I think just the stuff that you're getting off of this. I guess you can sort of build around it. You could also just let your opponents have it. If you let your opponents have it, you could do a politics thing where, hey, I'll donate it to you, and then when it gets to the other thing, you donate it back to me. You could wheel and deal. You could do a politics thing. That could be interesting. You could even do a hug deck. You could even just do Grixis Hug with this, I suppose. So maybe that's why they made this commander, is just you can make a janky politics deck or a janky hug deck with it in Grixis. Because just building around this commander is pretty difficult, actually, to make a decent deck out of it, I think. Anyway, moving on. Squee, dubious monarch, 2 and a red, a goblin noble 2/2 with haste. I believe this is our 3rd iteration of Squee, right? Squee Goblin Nabob being the first one, Squee the Immortal being the second one. Pretty sure that's all of them. Whenever Squee, dubious monarch attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. Okay. Already I don't like it. Because Squee is sort of he's a wuss, right? So I'm not sure what the story is here, but you may cast Squee, dubious monarch, from your graveyard by paying 3 and a red and exile 4 other cards from a graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. Okay, so we have the sort of recursion or reanimation effect that we usually see on Squee. From your graveyard by paying 3 and a red and exiling 4 other cards rather than paying its mana cost. So, but it's going to cost more. So really not a great reanimation effect. I mean, as a commander, that's good because you don't have to pay the commander tax. You're already saving. Like as a commander, if it dies and you have to cast it again, it's going to cost 5. Here, it's only going to cost 4, and you can exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. Exiling cards from your graveyard you could take advantage of that a little bit. Not a lot. There's a little bit you could do there. Obviously, you could put the other Squee in here, and when it dies, you could exile it from your graveyard and cast it from exile, which is funny. It's just a Goblin Tribal deck, though. Your Squee wants to be attacking, which doesn't feel like Squee to me. That seems like a flavor fail. I'm not sure. Like Squee just is kind of a wuss. I always thought of him that way. He doesn't die though. He like keeps coming back. I don't know. Like if you look at Squee's toy, right, which is always a card that I thought was super funny. Squee's toy is it's preventing damage. It just I don't know. I see a bit of a flavor fail here because he wants to be attacking. He's creating a goblin army. That just doesn't feel like I mean, maybe there's a story they came up with here. It looks like he's sitting on a throne, and he has piles of bodies, so he turned into like some crazy maniac with like a scythe that's just killing people. So maybe I'm sure there's a story there. Otherwise, though, just kind of like it's just another Goblin Tribal commander, so not super exciting, I don't think. Got lots of those already. You have the typical Squee recursion effect, although it's not a great one. Like I said, you could build around the exile cards from your graveyard a little bit, but other than that, it's not super exciting. All right, Joyra, Ageless, Innovator, and again, I think this is the 3rd iteration of Joyra, right? We got the suspend one, of course, and then we have the artifact one. I think that's it. So this would be the 3rd. Blue and a red, Human Artificer 2/3. Tap, put 2 ingenuity counters on Joyra, Ageless, and Innovator. I don't think... Have we ever seen ingenuity counters before? I'm pretty sure we have not. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of ingenuity counters on Joyra. That's interesting. So they did the artifact thing again. This is likely not going to be as good as the other artifact Joyra. I don't think any. Like the artifact Joyra is probably the best, or certainly towards the top as far as artifact commanders go. Just drawing cards is always great, right? So you're going to tap it. You're going to put 2 counters on it. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand on the battlefield where X number. So you're going to put a 2, right? So first time you use it, haste is going to be great here. 1,000-year elixir, of course. Magerite stone, which costs 2. It's going to be great, right? So the first thing you throw in play could be your Magerite stone. And then you can immediately untap your Joyra and then use its ability again, which will then put more counters on it. So untappers are going to be huge here. Almost assuredly, you're going to go 2, 4, 6. How high are you going to go? Are you going to go to 10? Are you going to go to 12, right? If you rely on going to 10 and 12, what's going to happen is you're going to get up to 6, and then your opponents will kill your commander. And then you're sitting there with a bunch of 10 mana artifacts in your hand, or 12 or whatever, and you're never going to get them into play. Master Transmuter would be great here, right? Another way to cheat those into play, and just in case you get stuck. What is the historic one? I can't remember off the top of my head. Temporal something or other, right? Temporal something. Anyway, it puts historic permanents into play, which of course are artifacts, so that would be a good one to throw in this deck as a backup, right? It's always, you don't want to have that monolith commander. It's always great to have backups for your commander. So are you going to be, again, the untapping is going to be huge here because you can tap, untap, tap, untap, and then get up to like 6 or 8 really, really quickly. And then putting 8 drops into play off your commander is pretty darn good, right? You can get some serious stuff. Platinum Empyrean or something like that, right? You could start getting really, you can get up to 8 pretty quick if you have untappers here and if you have haste enablers. So if that's what you're trying to do, I like it as a value commander where I'm just putting a 2-drop into play and the next turn I'll put a sad robot into play or something. That seems like nice value. I suppose if I was actually building this deck, first of all, this could probably go in the 99 of a lot of artifact decks, maybe even the other Joyra. No, you probably don't want it in the other Joyra deck because that one has a very low mana value or mana curve. This one, I would probably, yeah, if you're gonna build around this, you probably do want to go more, get up to the high end. This could be a tough one, actually. Interesting. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about today, Raph, Weatherlight Stalwart. And again, we've had a Raph. He was the one that gives your historic stuff flash, right? Sort of, you don't really see him much. White and a blue, so only 2 mana. I like cheap commanders. 1/3 whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. So now we're doing the instant and sorcery theme. You may tap 2 untapped creatures you control if you do draw a card. Oh wow, I like that. So we're in a instant and sorcery theme in Azorius, which is funny that you don't see that. You know, people think of Azorius as control colors, but you don't see instant and sorcery themes in Azorius very much. It's always Izzet, right? So I kind of like that. I like the tapping. There's a lot you can do there, right? You may tap 2 untap. Oh, I'm getting excited about this guy already. You can tap 2 untapped creatures you control. So you can, there's a lot you can do there. You can use like a Fallow Sage, which is a creature that wants to be tapped. Stony Brook Schoolmaster is a creature that wants to be tapped, which is going to spit out another creature that you can then use to this ability. You can use inspired creatures which want to be tapped so that you can then untap them. So all of that will fit nicely here. Not super overwhelming. Just this is certainly an underwhelming commander, but there is, there is a lot you can do there. Value plays. Also, we have 3 white creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. So yeah, that's okay. Obviously, the idea here is I give my team vigilance, and then I can attack with them, and then on my, and then when I use his first ability at some point, my creatures are untapped so that I can use them again, right? This ability is way too expensive. I guess this is only an uncommon, but this reminds me of a Kim, the Soaring Wind, where it's like, why did you make that ability so expensive? You're never going to use it, right? This 5 mana, that's a lot, right? Just to give your creatures +1/+1 in vigilance. There's way, like, the +1/+1 is nothing. The vigilance is sort of what you want here so that you can attack and not have to tap your creatures. Giving your creatures vigilance is easy, right? There's lots of stuff that does that. Brave the Sands or whatever, right? So that ability, I mean, it's okay. Obviously, you're going to be building around the first ability. That's what you're going to be building around, and there's a lot you can do there. It's not super overwhelming. It is definitely interesting, though. I think there's a bunch you can do. Having a commander that says draw a card on it is always a good thing, right? So I like this one. In fact, this might be my favorite of the bunch, I think, just because I think there's some neat things that you can do here. Anyway, 5 interesting new commanders for you guys to start buzzing about and talking about. I will be cranking out a bunch of these videos because I'm just going to take a wild stab in the dark that this set is going to have an absolute ton of legendary creatures. So I'm going to try to do 5 per video so that I can sort of not do 1,000 videos. The first Dominaria, I believe, had like 45 legendary creatures. There was a lot. I think I heard that there's going to be a legendary creature in every single pack of Dominaria United. So obviously there's going to be a ton for me to talk about. So I'm going to try to crank out these videos as fast as I can and just give you guys an idea. Combination spoiler video, reaction video, and then maybe what's some directions we can go with these legendary creatures. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these new legendary creatures. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.